Hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Tarandeep Panu. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a South Asian woman with short black hair, with glasses and a brown shirt on. I am the Strategic and EDI plus a Communication Specialist at the Canada Excellence Research Chair in Health Equity and Community Wellbeing at Toronto Metropolitan University. Thank you for joining us today for our April Open Lab. This open lab will feature Dr. Mikyung Lee and Dr. Eun Jung's work on tracking pathways through education and employment, a longitudinal study to advance health equity for equity-deserving youth in Canada. The session creates space for collaborative learning, critical reflection, and dialogue across disciplines, centering community-informed research and equity-driven approaches to knowledge production. Today's event is virtual, with some of our team gathered here on TMU, and others joining online from across Canada and beyond. Zoom captioning is provided. For those online, please select the CC button on your Zoom menu bar in order to see the captions. This session will be recorded and available on our website in the weeks to come. We will keep time for questions at the end through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Now I will pass it on to Karen Soldatich.
Thanks, Tarandeep, for organising today, and thanks, Dr. Lee and Dr. Eun for agreeing to present your materials. My name is Karen Soldatich, and I'm the Canada Excellence Research Chair in Health Equity and Community Wellbeing. And as you can hear, I actually have a strong Australian accent. I'm a Southern European woman with olive skin and dyed dark hair, and yeah. So before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the land on which we gather. Toronto Metropolitan University operates within the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anasabe, the Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee that binds them to share the territory and care for the land and its resources in the spirit of peace, friendship, and mutual respect. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples and all newcomers have been welcomed into this treaty. The work of the CERC in Health Equity and Community Wellbeing team takes place on traditional Indigenous territories that continue to sustain many nations today. Our research, partnerships, and community engagement depend on these lands, which provide space, sustenance, safety, and community. We are grateful for the opportunity to live, work, and learn here. Our work is long-term and community engaged in nature. Together with our partners and advisors, we aim to advance disability justice and health equity through intersectional research grounded in accessibility, care, and lived experience. We acknowledge the importance of research by, with, and for Indigenous peoples and are committed to building meaningful relationships with our Indigenous colleagues, communities, and partners. And I recognise as a settler, a recent settler from Australia, that I am the beneficiary of this treaty and the openness of Indigenous Canadians to enable me to come here. Indigenous teachings remind us that our responsibilities are not only historical, but ongoing. They call us to act with care, reciprocity, and accountability in the present. In this spirit, we offer with respect our gratitude and commitment to supporting relationships and practices that uphold Indigenous sovereignty, knowledge, and futures. We also recognise that accessibility is a shared responsibility and an ongoing practice. We are committed at the CERC to creating inclusive, barrier-free spaces, physical, digital, and relational, where diverse ways of knowing, being, and participating are respected and supported. We strive to ensure that our events, research, and communications are accessible to all, and we welcome feedback to continually improve our practices in alignment with principles of disability justice and community care. I'd now like to introduce Dr. Mikyung Lee, who's our Principal Research Associate here at the CERC in Social Epidemiology, and Dr. Eun Jung, Senior Research Associate in the Sociologies of Health, to present on their research. And as mentioned before, please keep your questions to the end of the presentation. Thank you, Young and Eun.
Thank you for the introduction. Now I'm going to move on to the presentation. So most of our research at CERC is co-designed and co-developed with people living with people living with living experiences, and this project is co-developed and co-designed with equity deserving youth in Canada. So we want to talk about how we co-developed the survey for this project um, in this presentation. So the project that we're going to present today is titled Tracking Pathway Through Education and Employment, a longitudinal study to advance health equity for equity deserving youth in Canada. So we have a big team of 17 members. So we have seven researchers and 6 knowledge users from communities, and then we have 4 youth leadership groups and then 1 collaborator. So post-secondary education is a critical determinant of economic competitiveness, labor market success, and financial stability, which in turn altogether affects lifelong health of youth. However, there's an inequitable access and success within post-secondary education, specifically towards equity-deserving youth, including Black, transgender, and gender diverse youth, and also youth living with disabilities. Also, those youth are more likely to experience intersecting systemic and institutional barriers, including racism, transphobia, ableism, which affects their mental health. Which in turn affects their lifelong health as well. So in our research, we want to look at direct pathway and then indirect pathway as well. So as you can see here, we want to understand how the post-secondary education experience and success affects their health and well-being, but also how post-secondary education experience and success affect their access to employment and then their success in employment and how that affects their health and well-being as well. So we're looking at direct and indirect pathways. So our research has 2 objectives. So we want to create new knowledge so we can identify group-specific needs. Specifically, we want to understand the factors hinder or facilitate equity-deserving youth successful pathway into post-secondary education and also labor market. And we also want to understand the unique challenges and unmet needs of those specific equity-deserving youth, including Black youth, transgender and gender diverse youth, and youth living with disabilities. Also, we also want to look at the intersecting systemic barriers and institutional obstacles that affects their educational and employment trajectories. Also, because it's co-designed with youth and then it's co-developed with youth, we also want to build capacity for youth involved in this research. So our project is, like I mentioned, it's a youth-led, community-engaged research. So we have 4 youth members that I showed in the team member slide. So those are the drivers of the research, and also it's intersectionality informed the research, so we're focusing on coalition building and structural change. And it's a mixed method study where we integrate 5-year longitudinal survey data with the qualitative focus groups. In this presentation, we're going to talk about how we develop the survey with youth and community members. So this is the first year's research process. So last year in January, we started establishing youth leadership group and youth advisory group. And then in April, we had a training day with youth leadership group where CERC researchers gave them training on research and this project specifically. And then on that day, we also co-developed the survey. And then after my presentation, my colleague Eun is going to talk about how we did the focus group to collect the feedback from youth advisory group. So a little bit of survey development. How we did was CERC researchers drafted the survey to answer the research question that I introduced. And then we received the feedback from community partners through email. And then researchers incorporated their feedback. And then we, during the training day in April last year, we received feedback from youth leadership group through interactive workshop. And after that, researchers incorporated their feedback. And then last week, we received the feedback from youth advisory group through focus groups. So this is how we how we received youth literacy groups feedback during the training. We used Padlet to make it more fun and then more interactive. So that's how we received the feedback from youth leadership group. And my colleague Eun is going to talk about how we did the focus group.
Thank you, Mikyung. So I'll walk you through what we did during the focus group and what we've learned and what we still find it challenging and we want to keep in mind moving forward. So like Mikyung mentioned before, one of the core principles of this research is building capacity for youth-led research. So we invite youth to be involved from the very beginning of the research process, such as survey development and proposal, to the last stage of research project, which is knowledge mobilization. So like Mikyung mentioned briefly before, we organized two groups of youth groups. First is YLG members who were invited as to go through the formal training to become researchers and take on the role of co-facilitating. And second is youth advisory groups, youth groups who participate in the focus groups to give feedback on the survey items and the results. So to give a little bit of more details on how we conducted the co-design research with youth. So going back to what happened last year. So in April, we went through some of the preparation work to prepare YLG to fulfill their role as co-facilitators. So like Mikyung mentioned, there was a one-day in-person research training that were conducted at CERC. And also, we supported YLG members to complete Canada Red Cross Psychological First Aid Certificate to protect themselves and the others when hard, difficult conversations arise during the focus groups. And we also supported them to complete TCPS core certificate to formally invite them to institutional research ethics board application. And after the training, we recruited YAG members by distributing posters through the community partners that we already established. So in total, we have recruited 7 Black youth, 5 trans and gender diverse youth, and 7 youth with disabilities. And the number in brackets next to those numbers are a number of YAG members who actually showed up in the focus groups, which I'll discuss more in detail later. So after the YAG recruitment, we scheduled 3 focus groups according to each social identities. And leading up to the focus groups, we CERC researchers and YLG members sat together and prepared 4 things so that they're prepared to for the focus groups. First was we had a meeting to co-create the guidelines and interview questions together, which also involved the second bullet point, which was division of responsibilities, discussing who is going to take on what role and who is more comfortable fulfilling those roles in what sections of the interviews. And we also created and kept communal reflection journal where all the YLG members can leave their reflections and what went well and what went wrong, and what are the advice that they want to give for the future focus groups. And we also allocated 10 minutes before and after the focus group to debrief what went well and what went wrong, and just to check in on each other about their safety and their comfort level. And after the 3 focus groups, CERC researchers sat down together to review and incorporate the YAG suggestions into the survey development. And we also created and kept a Google form for a couple of weeks after the focus groups, just in case anyone who wants to come back and give us more feedback, because that's the nature of qualitative research. it's always after the focus groups or interviews that you want to say, like there's like something that you missed and you want to reach out to the researchers and just fill in anything that they may have missed. So I'll end the presentation with by sharing some of the things that we think that went well and some of the things that we found challenging and want to keep in mind moving forward. First, in terms of YLG members, as we expected and how we designed the research, their involvement really resulted in better focus group facilitation and better focus group outcomes. I could really witness that the conversation flowed really well during the focus groups, and the conversations were relevant and based on lived experiences. And I could really witness how YAG members felt more comfortable and safe to share their stories and their feedback due to the presence of YLG members in that space. And after the focus groups, all the YLG members mentioned that they enjoyed the process, and even though they were kind of nervous at the beginning, now they feel more confident. And similar to YLG members, YAG members also mentioned that they enjoyed the process and they learned new things by being involved in the survey development process. And their suggestions are really, really valuable because there are so many important things that non-youth academics or professionals have missed, which really strengthened our surveys. And when CERC researchers asked them if they were interested in joining future focus groups to contextualize the findings of the survey, they all said yes. So we're gonna send invitations to them when the survey results are in. Lastly, some of the challenges. Tokenism is one of the things that all YPAR, like which is Youth Participatory Action Research projects face and needs to keep in mind moving forward. And also, the next one is co-facilitator's role. So CERC researchers kind of guide YLG members what to do and what to expect during the focus groups. But at the same time, we want to hear YLG members what they want from researchers, what kind of roles and expectations there are during the focus groups. And also third and fourth point is quite similar, is finding the balance between setting clear expectations and lessening the burdens from the participants. So we need to make sure that the YLG members feel comfortable and safe during the process, but at the same time, we need to make it clear that this is a formal professional environment where they have specific roles that are entailed in their involvement and participation. Lastly, fraudulent participants. This goes back to how I mentioned about the number of participants initially when we recruited them and the number of participants who actually showed up in the focus groups. So it was less than half sometimes. So how we interpret it is in two ways. First, they could be fraudulent participants, which is a very common issue that a lot of projects these days face. But also it could be a lack of support from the CERC research, how we could have gave them more support in terms of using internet data, or if there were any accessibility issues, especially for YAG members with disabilities. So those are the things that we researchers as a team wants to address moving forward. Okay, so that's end of our presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mikyung and Eun. We'll just give the audience a couple of minutes to put in their questions, and then I will read them out. At this time, if you do have any questions, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to type them in, and I will read them out. So our first question is, what did YLG members find most valuable about the co-design process?
This is a really important questions that we also are trying to explore at the moment. So followed by this focus groups, because this is a longitudinal study and we are reaching the end of year one. So we are actually conducting a separate qualitative interview research with YLG members to ask for their experiences. So CERC researchers and YLG members sit together and then we're asking questions like, how did you feel? Like what was more valuable? And for the next coming years, what would you like to suggest that we improve or change? So listening to their experiences and also incorporating their feedback for the future research, because co-design research or community-based research, they're all iterative, they're all collaborative. So we want to value that principle in this research. So very good question. We are exploring, and please stay tuned for the results of that research that is ongoing right now. Yeah.
And the second question is, so first, thank you both for such a great presentation. I'm curious about the involvement of local community organizations and grassroots initiatives in supporting this work. Has this been explored or considered?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer that question. So we have two community partners, Planned Parenthood Toronto and also Tropicana community service, and both communities have been involved in at the start of the project, so we can also hear from them what research question we should be asking, because although we are researchers, we don't have in-depth knowledge or expertise in specific youth group that we want to focus on in this research. So we reached out to those two community partners, and they helped us understanding the community needs. So from the start, we had them, and also in terms of how we involved them was, um, so we had before we really did the co-design research with the youth, before we involved them, we had a lot of meeting with the community organization, so we, as a researcher, can be prepared, because community partners, they have more knowledge on the youth that they serve. So that's how they were involved, and then they were also involved in this survey development as well. And moving forward, we have yearly workshop where after we finish our survey data collection and also focus group data collection, we're going to have a workshop where community partners will also be invited, so we can provide what we found in year one, and we also can hear from them, so we can incorporate that moving forward in year two and etc.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Mikyung and Eun, and thank you for everyone attending. Our next open lab will be May 5th. You can please scan the QR code on your screen to register for the next event. And for all our other events, news, and research outputs, please scan the QR code for the CERC in Health Equity and Community Wellbeing website. This recording will be posted by the end of April for you to check. And thank you again for everyone attending.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.